The year is 1951. There's a huge drought going through and the Blanco River has run completely dry. One morning under the I-10, a gravel company digs up a spring that was spurting out water to uncover the source of it. In doing so, they dig up a bunch of little white salamanders. The wildlife specialist on deck took 4 of these salamanders and put them into a bucket. 2 of these were taken by Heron and the other one was lost, leaving only one specimen which would later find its way into a jar at UT Austin. After being looked at, it was confirmed that these were a new species of blind salamander. The Blanco Blind Salamander was only about 4 inches long. It had a robust body, small bony limbs, pigmentless skin, and external gills. The Blanco Blind Salamander has a typical description of other blind salamanders. And the reason they all look the same is because they are all from the genus Uracea, a genus that has many species which show troglomorphism. Troglomorphism is the adaptation species make to living in the perpetual darkness of underground caverns. And the blind salamanders of Texas are actually the best examples of troglomorphism in the world, especially the Texas blind salamander, which lives in San Marcos. And their diet consists of mostly small arthropods as well as isopods and other small crustaceans that they can find in the water. These blind salamanders live mostly in the Edwards Aquifer, as well as springs and flooded caves that are fed by the aquifer. But this makes them really hard to find, and on top of that, they're all endangered, due mostly to pollution and overuse of the aquifer, but especially pollution because they have semi-permeable skin, which means anything that's in the water is going to get into their skin and therefore into their body. And it doesn't help that a lot of people just disrespect the aquifer with their dumping of wastewater and just a low understanding of how the water table works. And I promise it's not grody that these things live in our water. In fact, their habitation is actually a sign of clean water because of the whole, semi-permeable skin thing I was talking about. Now back to the Blanco salamander. It hasn't been seen since 1951, so you might be thinking, is it extinct? Well, not quite. The Blanco blind salamander is considered a lost species. According to Rewild, an organization leading the search in these lost species, they describe a lost species as any species that has been lost to science for more than 10 years. And considering the Blanco blind salamander hasn't been seen in over 70, I'd say it makes the cut. But how do we plan on finding these salamanders? Unlike we may think, crawling into caves and hoping you'll find one isn't the best way of finding one of these. The leading method is something called eDNA, or environmental DNA, because every animal, including us, is constantly leaving behind traces of our DNA. And by testing the air, soil, or in this case, water in which it's supposed to live, we can pick up on traces of these DNA, and then we can compare them to other DNA samples we have in our DNA database. Over the last few years and many wells, this method has discovered a handful of previously undiscovered species of salamanders, but unfortunately not the Blanco one. Hopefully the Blanco blind salamander isn't extinct and will soon be found with further eDNA testing. But as of right now, it is not looking hopeful for these little guys. So until then, the Blanco blind salamander continues to be lost.